All right, I want to bring in the panel at this point, especially on that last story, which I simply can't believe. Not one disciplinary action against that magistrate. That's it. Let's talk to Parnell Palme McGuinness, who's the director of Thought Broker. And I also want to catch up with Liberal Senator James Paterson, who often appear with Andrew, and it's fantastic to have both of you here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Chris.
Pleasure.
Now, Parnell, let's start with you. What do you make of the magistrate who obviously is continuing his activism from the bench?
Look, well, I think the law and the facts are really important here. And while I would not condone somebody being let off for doing something illegal, especially driving while affected by drugs, in this case, it sounds like it was about 48 hours after he had smoked dope and it should have been out of his system. Now, that doesn't mean, you know, the ruling did not say it was legal to smoke dope. It didn't say it was okay to smoke dope. What the ruling said was this should, by rights, have been out of your system according to the government website, which says about 12 hours. And this was 48 hours. So I think in this case, the magistrate does have the defence that he applied the law, and the law is not trying to stop people from having pot in their system full stop. It's trying to stop people from driving affected by drugs.
Yeah,
so
well, James Paterson, why I take offence to what he's doing is that he's tampering with what medical evidence tells us. And medical evidence has been around. Forget about the government website. The medical evidence has been around. It stays in your system sometimes for 3 days or even a week. I've heard of instances where it stays in someone's bloodstream for a week.
That's right, Chris, and the magistrate is perfectly entitled to his own political views. If he wishes, he can vote for the Hemp Party or the Greens to express those political views, but as a magistrate, it's his job to ensure that the law is adhered to. And in this case, so the facts, as I understand it, is you had someone who admitted to taking an illegal drug and driving a motor vehicle, and we know that that particular illegal drug severely impairs your ability to drive a motor vehicle and puts every other road user at risk. I don't think he would have such a permissive attitude if that driver had gone off the road and hit and killed someone or injured someone, as could have easily happened in this case. It's lucky that it didn't. Yeah,
it's just like drinking. Driving and being stoned can cause as much, if not more, damage given the circumstances, and it's something he should not just ignore. However, I've said enough about him. I want to talk about gas reserves, and we've had so much discussion here at Sky News today about what we're reading, what we're seeing. I don't think, Parnell, I don't think the public would have a problem in the feds basically overruling the states and the territories and saying, this is how many gas reserves, or this is how much gas you need to keep up your sleeve right here at home, not exported, so we can not only use it and not run out of gas, but we not only run out of energy, but we also have cheaper gas prices.
I agree. And I think that they should also say, by the way, you can access more gas from your gas fields if you want to do so and export just as much as you've been exporting to date. So if you want to keep on making that buck by selling the gas, go right ahead. But that does mean that you're going to have to deal with some of these sort of NIMBY-ish issues on in your own state, where some states have just decided that they're not going to be accessing gas anymore at all, whether fracking or other forms of access.
Yeah, James, sometimes the price of Australian gas is less expensive on the overseas market than it is locally.
Yes, Chris, and that's for strange contractual reasons, but the domestic price of gas is absolutely critical in two respects. One is it's a really important input for a lot of manufacturing processes, and if it becomes not affordable, then a lot of jobs are at risk.
Yep.
And secondly, increasingly gas is setting the price of electricity in Australia because it's the marginal last bit of energy that goes into the system and sets the price for everyone. So it's absolutely critical we get the price down. Frankly, the intervention that we've announced in the market today is not traditional, natural, liberal thing to do, but the government believes it's a necessary thing to do. I don't think it would be necessary if we didn't have state governments like my own here in Victoria just locking up potentially extraordinary gas resources through unconventional means like CSG. And it's a tragedy that we're not taking advantage of that to help drive down gas prices and use it as an export earner for Australia.
Yeah, we can still have it as a great export earner, but we've got to give priority to our own country. We so often ignore what we need, you know, our own facilities and our own services. Look at fuel at the moment. We've only got, you know, 21 to 23 days of fuel existing at the moment. We've got to look after ourselves and stop being, you know, some kind of convener for other countries in the region. We seem to be looking after others in the region and not looking after ourselves. Ben Simmons. Now, I love Ben Simmons. My son is an amazing basketball fan and a great basketballer himself, and we've got to love Ben Simmons and what he does in the NBA. But last night, he apparently turned up to Crown Casino. He was with a few of his mates. I'm trying to read between the lines here. All of a sudden, he's got on Instagram to complain about the fact that he was racially profiled. But then he took it off Instagram. He said at the time he wasn't allowed in. Now, Crown is saying today he was allowed in. He went in. But they are duty-bound to check the ages of patrons who come in who they think might be under 25. It's part of the rule and it's part of efficacy for a casino to do exactly that. He's released a statement this afternoon maintaining he was racially profiled. I get the feeling that he might be a great basketball, Ben Simmons, and earn stacks of money, but he's a little bit sensitive, Parnell.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it is possible that they held him up at the entrance. You know, these places, these venues have a bunch of rules which are meant to, which are designed to be arbitrarily applied effectively by the bouncers, so that if they see somebody who they think is not quite kosher or, you know, might be affected by something, that they can give them an excuse and turn them away. But that also means sometimes that entering a venue like that, you might sort of be jostled around a little bit, you might be asked to check the ID, or you might be told, well, you know, generally we don't let people in who are wearing these sorts of things. So they might have just been having a bit of that argy-bargy with him, and he might have just been a little bit oversensitive. We don't know. We weren't there. I hope that it wasn't racial profiling, because that's always an unpleasant sort of way to end a night.
And we don't know the full picture. We don't know whether they were behaving in a rowdy manner. We don't know whether they were behaving oddly. We can't see the CCTV. No doubt there is CCTV of Ben Simmons turning up to Crown Casino. I'm sure it's been kept in-house there and it's been watched by just about every staff member. But we don't know the full story. We don't know whether they brought it upon themselves. James, I just think sometimes it's the first go-to point where we say, oh, because I'm a particular colour, they've pulled me up and they've stopped me. It's a big step and a big jump to make that accusation against a place like Crown Casino when you don't know the full story.
Crown's had a shocking couple of weeks, haven't they, Chris? They haven't had a good media story at all. And you're right. We weren't there. We can't really judge. It's very hard to judge. But like you, I'm a huge fan of Ben Simmons. I think he's one of the most outstanding athletes this country's produced in a long time, and at the beginning of a very, very promising career. I hope little hiccups like this along the way, whatever the truth of it may be, don't detract from an outstanding athletic career ahead for him.
Yeah, exactly. Here he is in Australia. We'd love him to be here and play, and there are some games that he said he'll play in, but he's not going to play in the World Championships, which is a great disappointment. We hope he plays for our Olympic team, the Boomers. It would be just fantastic. We want to love him, but we don't want him to start playing a race card over and over again merely because he's trying to get into a casino. Plus, Crown has allowed him in. So do they really deserve a smack around the chops? I don't think they do. I want to quickly just raise the economy and raise this battle going on, the trade war going on between Donald Trump and, of course, the Chinese. The Chinese are not silly. They know how to counterattack, as they've done today, and look at the market and the effect it's had on markets right around the world. Parnell, not a good look for Donald Trump at this point, because the Chinese are very clever negotiators and they know how to manipulate a market, don't they?
They really do. They're playing hardball. And you know what? I mean, this in some ways also vindicates what Trump's done to some extent, because what he recognised early on was that the Chinese weren't playing a straight hand. And now they're doubling down and saying, OK, well, we may as well not even pretend anymore. Now we're going to devalue our currency and cause you all sorts of issues, and let's see who cracks first. Yeah,
and James, this is going to impact on large and small businesses in America. They'll be paying a lot more to get access to China, and that's not a great reflection on Trump.
Well, Chris, this is exactly what we've feared for some time would be the result of a trade war with China, and ultimately trade wars hurt everyone involved in them, and even countries like Australia who are third parties to these trade wars. Having said that, we believe the Trump administration has legitimate complaint with the Chinese government.
Yep.
Their trade practices have been unfair.
Exactly.
And that's a bipartisan political consensus in Washington as it is here in Canberra.
Exactly. And
he
just shouldn't let go of that. He can't let go of that. Despite the fact that they've come back hard in the last 24 hours, he can't let go of that. I've run out of time. Parnell Palme McGuinness and James Paterson, Liberal Senator, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Cheers, Chris.
Cheers.